When people think of Squaresoft, they usually think of Final Fantasy. But during the PlayStation era, Squaresoft was doing a lot more than just that. They were experimenting with new ideas, new genres, and completely different kinds of games. Some of which never got the attention they deserved. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you for helping the channel reach 500 subscribers. I really appreciate everyone who's been watching and supporting the videos. And if the channel name looks a little different, that's part of a small rebranding going forward. Today I want to take a look back at some of Squaresoft's PlayStation era games that proved the company was more than just Final Fantasy, and why this era means so much to me and so many others. Please do consider liking and subscribing. Let's go! Let's start with one of the most ambitious games Squaresoft ever released on the PlayStation, Vagrant Story. A game that didn't just try something new, it tried everything new. Released in 2000 and developed by Yasumi Matsuno's team, the minds behind Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, Vagrant Story stands out immediately. Square gave Matsuno's group almost complete creative freedom under Product Development Division 4, and you can feel that freedom in every frame. You play as Ashley Riot, an elite risk-breaker sent into the haunted city of Le Mans to chase down the mysterious Sydney Losterod. The tone is mature, grounded, and cinematic in a way that feels totally different from most PS1 RPGs. In a lot of ways, Vagrant Story feels like a blend of Final Fantasy Tactics political storytelling and Metal Gear Solid cinematic presentation. It has the depth and world building Matsuno is known for, but with moody lighting, dramatic camera angles, and tense pacing you'd expect from early Kojima-style design. It's a really unique mix, and still unlike anything else today. Gameplay-wise, Vagrant Story looks like an action RPG, but plays like a timing-based, weapon-building, system-heavy experiment. You lock onto enemies, the action freezes, and you chain attacks by pressing buttons at the right moment. It's incredibly deep, sometimes unforgiving, and it becomes truly satisfying once you understand its logic. Of course, I didn't notice a lot of these systems until I completely messed my game up. Anyway, a lot of that depth comes from its Western RPG influences. Vagrant Story pulls ideas from PC dungeon crawlers and tabletop-style character building. It has that numbers-driven design you'd normally associate with games inspired by Dungeons & Dragons. Affinity types, weapon crafting, risk management, it all feels like a Japanese take on classic Western RPG systems. And yeah, you'll notice in this footage, especially up to the Stone Golem, I'm still figuring things out. The Stone Golem definitely taught me a few lessons, but that's part of the charm. The game challenges you consistently, and mastering its systems is part of the journey. Despite being complex, Vagrant Story was critically adored at release. Famitsu even gave it a rare perfect score, but it never reached mainstream popularity, partly because its difficulty and experimental mechanics weren't what most players were expecting at the time. Today though, it holds up as one of the most creative and atmospheric games on the console. If you love Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy XII, or just want something darker and more stylized than the typical JRPG, Vagrant Story is absolutely worth experiencing. It's bold, unique, and it deserved far more attention. Tobal No. 1 is one of the most fascinating experiments Squaresoft ever released on the original PlayStation. It came out in 1996, making it their very first PlayStation game, not long before Final Fantasy VII turned the entire industry upside down. And it absolutely feels like Square is trying out every strange, ambitious idea they can squeeze into a fighting game. I've covered this game before, but I'm always down to talk about it again. Before anything else, the big name behind the gameplay is Seiji Ishii. He helped design Virtua Fighter and worked on the original Tekken. That's why Tobal controls so smoothly. It comes from someone who basically helped design the 3D fighting genre. And switching from that background into a wild Squaresoft project, perfect match. The combat is deliberate and surprisingly modern for its time. You've got high, mid, and low attacks, directional inputs, grapples, dodges, full 360-degree movement, and it runs at 60 frames per second. It's one of those rare early PS1 fighters that still plays well today. I'm looking at you, Battle Arena Toshinden. No! I played this with my friends a lot as a kid, and it was one of those games, once someone tried it, they were hooked. Character designs were done by the late great Akira Toriyama. This is one of the best translations of his art into early 3D polygons. The characters actually look right. Clean silhouettes, expressive faces, The whole thing feels like a Toriyama manga come to life, and with a roster that includes robots, aliens, martial artists, and Chuji who looks like he jumped straight out of a chapter of Dragon Ball. The game's got personality that just pops. The story? Well, it's different for sure. Fighters enter an interplanetary fighting tournament to win exclusive mining rights to the mineral Malmoran, and I think they win some money too. And then there's Quest Mode. Quest Mode. It's a full dungeon crawler bolted onto a 3D fighter, and if we're being honest, it controls pretty terribly when you're exploring. Movement feels like you're controlling a forklift, and getting around really just isn't fun. And you'll probably fall into more traps than you'd like. But once you get into a fight, the game switches back to that smooth, brilliant Tobal fighting engine. These fights are short, so before you know it, you'll be back to wishing this game had tank controls. I don't know why I played this so much as a kid. It sucks. But this mode is how you earn a lot of the secret characters. Tobal No. 1 soundtrack is one of my favorites of all time, and I still listen to it today. It has this amazing lineup of composers: Yasunori Mitsuda, Kenji Ito, Musashi Hamauzu, Junya Nakano, Noriko Matsuda. Each one brings a totally different flavor: funk, electronic, and weird experimental rhythms. It's a sampler platter of mid-90s Square musical talent at their most creative. So why didn't Tobal No. 1 catch on, especially considering how good it is? The title. Tobal No. 1 doesn't tell you anything. It sounds like a cleaning product.
Lie! Tobal No. 1 is tough on stains! Lie!
Marketing. Square barely promoted the game outside of Japan. A lot of players didn't even know it existed. Competition. It launched against Tekken 2 and other big-name fighters. Tobal was more technical and less flashy, which made it a harder sell. Final Fantasy VII demo overshadowed it. It's ironic because Tobal No. 1 is now remembered for being the game that came with the Final Fantasy VII demo. But at launch, that didn't actually help it. I covered Tobal No. 1 a little over a year ago, but honestly I love this game. It's weird, creative, charming, and full of personality, even with its flaws, and Quest Mode has plenty. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already.
But just take a look at this! Oh my god! Game over!
If someone told me back in 1999 that Squaresoft had made a dramatic, neon-soaked street racing RPG, I'd assume they were probably confusing it with a Final Fantasy spin-off. But Racing Lagoon is real. Released only in Japan on June 10, 1999, and thanks to Hilltop Works' 2021 fan translation, we can finally play it properly. Huge thanks to all of the translators out there. They're the real MVPs of retro gaming. I first heard about this game in 2002 when my friend Sakam read about it in Tokyo Pop magazine. If you remember Tokyo Pop, you know it really wasn't a gaming magazine. It was more, here's what's cool in Japan right now. But every once in a while they drop a game so weird and interesting that it stuck with you. Racing Lagoon was one of them. And honestly, if Final Fantasy VIII and Tokyo Extreme Racer had a baby, Racing Lagoon is what would have popped out. Dramatic, stylish, emotional, and obsessed with cars. It sounds insane, but it works. The game takes place in Yokohama Bay. You play as Sho Asaki, a newcomer to the Bay Lagoon racing team, and the whole story centers around a mysterious crash from 10 years ago. It builds towards this big sanctioned street racer Grand Prix, and everyone you meet has baggage. Rivalries, grudges, secrets. It's way more serious than it looks. But then you get these intentional weird character poses. Everyone looks like they're trying to land a modeling gig in a 1999 Dreamcast ad. One guy looks like he's bracing for an earthquake. Another poses like he's about to deliver a sermon on the importance of horsepower. It's glorious. Gameplay mixes JRPG exploration with real-time street racing. To challenge people, you flash your high beams, and you can challenge pretty much anything on the road. And those fast flashing cars? Those are basically random encounters. Sometimes you want to battle, sometimes you really don't. Too bad. They hit you with the "we racing now" energy. Winning earns you RP, which is the main racing currency. Shops only take cash, but at the bank, yes, there's a whole bank. You can convert RP into money whenever you need it. Gas stations are your save points. They went all into making this feel like real late-night car culture. Now, the customization system is wild. You only have one car, but you'll build dozens of different setups. Engines, chassis, bodies, each level up separately. And leveling gives them slots. Slots are where you drop in turbochargers, suspension upgrades, tires, brakes, mufflers, paint, body kits, everything is a part. And some of the best parts? locked behind side events that will absolutely smoke you the first time. But honestly, I didn't mind the grind. It's racing, and of course I'm going to keep doing it. The cover even calls it a high-speed racing RPG. And I get it. New IP, totally new genre. Squaresoft probably knew someone was going to assume this was a Final Fantasy expansion pack and try casting Cure on a muffler. They had to spell it out. At one point I had a Skyline engine and an RX-7 chassis with a super body. And with how many turbochargers I had stacked on, Vin Diesel himself could have showed up just to remind me it's all about family. Now let's talk about the music. Jazz, electronic, ambient, rock. It's that perfect late night city mix that makes you want to take a drive even when it's 2 a.m. and you have to work in the morning. It's one of the most atmospheric soundtracks Squaresoft ever produced. After 25 hours with it, I can honestly say, Racing Lagoon is one of the coolest risks Squaresoft ever took. That's honestly the reason it probably failed. It's a very strange mix. But it's stylish, moody, addictive, and the customization is deep enough to lose hours in. It took decades for most of us to finally play it, but it was absolutely worth the wait.
Puny? And why are you guys wearing such stupid costumes?
Stupid costumes? Take that back, you little turd!
Please, princess, Sir Little Turd, calmeth down.
The name's Brave Fencer Musashi.
In the mid-90s, Squaresoft was busy building worlds the size of continents, the kind of RPGs that swallowed entire summers. And then out of nowhere, they released Brave Fencer Musashi, a game that doesn't care about brooding heroes or 10-minute monologues. This one kicks the door open, hands you 2 swords, and dares you to keep up. It's loud, stylish, and completely unrestrained. Square experimented between giants and accidentally created one of the most energetic side projects on the PlayStation. The game opens with Musashi being summoned to another world to save the all-you-can-eat kingdom from the invading Thirst Quencher Empire. And right away the tone is clear. This isn't a serious brooding epic. Musashi is loud, impatient, and barely interested in being a hero. But once he gets his hands on Lumina and Fusion, the 2 swords tied to the kingdom's fate, he dives headfirst into the adventure with all the attitude you expect from a character who feels ripped straight out of a 90s anthropomorphic lead. It's called Tude. Brave Fencer Musashi plays like a fast action RPG with the pacing of a platformer. Combos come out quick, movement feels sharp, and swapping between his 2 main swords is easy and responsive. What really gives this game its identity, though, is the way Musashi grows. Instead of an XP bar, everything levels up on its own. Musashi gets stronger. His swords get better the more you use them. Even his tools and special techniques become more effective the longer you rely on them. It creates this steady sense of momentum where something is always getting stronger. Not just the character, but the entire kit you're using to explore and fight. One of the most interesting parts of the game is rescuing the castle residents scattered across the world. Every time you bring someone back, the castle shifts a little. A new shop opens, someone cracks a joke, or even a side quest suddenly becomes available. The place slowly fills out with life and personality. It gives the game this warm, almost cozy sense of progress. You're not just completing objectives, you're rebuilding a community, one rescue at a time, and the world genuinely feels better because of it. The game breaks up its action with light puzzles and short, distinct areas that never overstay their welcome. You run through forests, climb towers, and poke around side paths, and each place has its own twist to keep things moving. It never tries to be a sprawling world. It's more like a series of fun set pieces, each one giving you something new to swing at or figure out. That pacing keeps the whole adventure light on its feet, which fits perfectly with Musashi's loud, energetic personality. Another cool thing about Brave Fencer Musashi is this day-night cycle. In-town NPCs have a daily schedule. This also includes shops closing at certain times, or just not being open one day a week. This also affects Musashi. As the day goes on, his tired percentage rises. He slows down, eventually walking. Dungeons can take a couple days, so it's useful that Musashi can nap while out in the world. Brave Fencer Musashi has a very bright and colorful style. Musashi has tons of different facial expressions. NPCs also have character portraits, and every NPC is unique. This game's also got tons of detail, and they really went above and beyond in the presentation department. There's some catchy tunes in the game's soundtrack. There's a great combination of heroic, energetic, and dramatic themes. Then there's the voice acting, which is cartoony and pretty funny.
There does be no effect. They shall find us our whereabouts soon.
Oh, we can finally meet him, the lovely and handsome, brave fencer Musashi.
Princess, please resume your assignment.
Here goes nothing.
Oh, he's here! Our gracious hero, brave fencer Musashi.
He's rather small. This will not do.
Brave Fencer Musashi stands out because of Square having fun. A compact personality-driven project that proves the studio could make something stylish and energetic even outside their trademark RPG epics. It was much more popular in Japan than it ever was in the West, and a lot of players still remember grabbing it just to play the Final Fantasy VIII demo. Once again, I'm guilty of this. But underneath that nostalgia is a genuinely lively adventure that deserves more recognition. It's colorful, fast, and packed with charm. One of Square's most memorable offbeat classics from the late 90s. Tobal wasn't Squaresoft's only fighter. Bushido Blade, developed by Lightweight, released in 1997. Bushido Blade had a trailer on the Squaresoft sampler disc included with Tobal No. 1. Bushido Blade isn't a traditional fighter. There are no life bars. One fatal strike and it's over. The game was designed for console. Director Kuniko Nakata stated Bushido Blade wouldn't work in the arcade. Bushido Blade's story mode features one of the 6 characters trying to escape the Kage. The other 5 characters will be tasked by the Kage to eliminate the defector. They're basically a group of ninjas. Other modes in Bushido Blade are Versus Mode, Slash Mode, Point of View, and Training. Each mode has you choose a character and a weapon. There's a total of 8 weapons with different stances. Being hit with an attack won't always kill. Hits to the arm will disable it. A wound on the leg and they'll have to fight on one knee. In that situation you can push select for an honorable death. But screw that, I never give up. Of course a body blow is fatal. Some fights last seconds, others can be a little more difficult, waiting for an opening to strike. Weapons obviously play a big part. There are a wide variety, like a katana, broadsword, short sword, and rapier. There's also a spear and a sledgehammer. All characters have 2 outfits, one for story and slash mode, and another for versus, training, and point of view. Story mode requires you to fight with honors to progress, meaning you can't attack them while they're talking, or from behind, or on the ground. There are bosses in this mode with exclusive weapons. You can also play 2 players by pushing start on the character select screen on the second controller. Each character does have 2 endings. Slash mode is a survival against 100 ninjas. If you can get through them all without dying, you unlock Katsei with his gun. Music is once again a highlight here too. Bushido Blade is still a very unique fighter worth a look. Bushido Blade 2 released a year later in 1998. The roster received a major upgrade to 22 fighters. Bushido Blade 2's story focuses on a feud between 2 clans that's been raging for hundreds of years. The game's opening cutscene shows the Sioux clan's first attack on the Kagami's descendants. The story mode in Bushido Blade 2 is much longer and filled with optional characters to recruit. Another upgrade is that this game runs at 60 frames per second, After all, Tobal 1 and 2 already achieved this, so Bushido Blade had to catch up. Combat is much smoother compared to the first. However, it's very arcadey and a lot of the depth of combat has been lost. Either of these games is worth it if you're looking for something different. The one-hit fighter started here. Check these games out if you can. The first slow and methodical. The second fast and a little more arcade. SaGa Frontier also appeared on that Squaresoft sampler disc included with Tobal No. 1. The teaser didn't reveal much, but what little it showed was intriguing, and the artwork immediately stood out. Oh, and by the way, the last game on that sampler disc is Final Fantasy Tactics. The SaGa series is interesting. If you think of the first two Final Fantasies as starting points, the first with its experience point level progression, that continued from 3 onward. Final Fantasy 2 is different, the real series black sheep. Progression is based on the actions of the party members. Attack and strength increases. Use magic and intelligence increases. Well, the SaGa series continued with Final Fantasy 2's stat-based progression. Interestingly enough, SaGa Frontier is the 7th entry in the series. Released in 1997, the same year as Final Fantasy VII. The SaGa series still sees new releases and remasters today. That's why I'm playing SaGa Frontier Remaster instead of the PS1 original. SaGa Frontier had quite a bit of cut content due to time constraints and disk space. Honestly, this game already had a lot of content, but the remaster is also a director's cut that restores what was removed. The most notable is Fuse, who was a recruitable side character in the original. He was also the 8th playable lead that got cut. Another is the scenes from Azlus's scenario that led to alternate endings. There are also quite a few quality of life features in the remaster. One is New Game Plus. This really helps for Fuse's 7 mini scenarios investigating the other protagonists. A few others are increased battle speed, a quest log, the ability to save anywhere outside of a battle or cutscene, and all random battles have a 100% flee rate, and more. Another reason I'm talking about the remaster is I bought it when it came out, but I only played through Azlus's scenario. Also, it's the easiest way to play the game today. So as I was saying earlier, there are 8 different protagonists. First is Red. At the start of his story, Red and his father are attacked by Schuser, a member of Black X. Red's father is killed in the attack. Red is mortally wounded, but the superhero Alcohol arrives and saves Red by making him the superhero Alkaiser. Red swears to take down Black X one leader at a time. Luda is a carefree youth who brings his mother nothing but grief. His was the first one I beat as a kid. He's trying to find his fortune. If you recruit him as one of the other characters and try to go to his house, he'll state his mother told him not to come back until he had a job. Amelia is framed for the murder of her fiancé. She must escape from prison and help an organization take down Joker, the one who murdered her fiancé Ren. Fuse really has it out for her in his interrogation. Ren was his friend and a fellow ERPO officer. Because of the restored content, Ren is available to recruit with Fuse. Amelia's story is pretty interesting. T-260 is a mech that gets excavated. It's very old and can't remember its mission. T-260 will befriend humans and monsters, as well as other mechs, helping it fulfill its purpose. Ricky is a monster from the floating land of Margmel. The land is dying, and Ricky must venture to the human world to find the rings to save Margmel before it's too late. Blue's story begins with his graduation to Master Magician. This is also his twin brother's graduation. Rogues was held in a different location. The two are destined to duel to the death to take the other's power and become the ultimate mage. Azlus is a half mystic, kind of like a half vampire. Mystics are immortal and sleep in coffins. Lord Orlog ran her over and used his blood to bring her back. Now as the first half mystic, she has to find her place in the world. Fuse is unlocked once you complete a character's story. He's an ERPO investigator. He adds a little more to the other characters' scenarios. A playthrough with Red, with Fuse's investigation, took around 27 hours. I did a lot of grinding though. Throughout each character's adventure, they'll be able to recruit each other and plenty of other party members. Playing around with different weapons and magic is the real fun of this game, like giving a mage a sword to increase HP. Even if they don't get a chance to attack, as long as sword was the action, these stats will increase. Magic in SaGa Frontier can be purchased, but to get the most powerful spells, party members must receive the gift. Each school of magic has a quest to complete. They all have opposites. Body magic is for humans, mystic is for mystics. Shadow or light magic, arcane or rune magic, time or space magic. Each can only get one of the two in each category. Mechs rely on parts to increase their stats. They can't use magic, but they can get powerful weapon abilities. Monsters absorb other monsters, and mystics do something similar. Gun skills and spells are acquired after battle. Melee and sword skills are learned from sparks. By using different abilities, new techniques can be learned. And battle characters will sometimes use combination attacks. These deal bonus damage. Also, being able to speed up battle really makes grinding a breeze. One thing to be careful about is battle rank. It's the game's way of scaling enemies to your party. I grinded a lot, so I was battle rank 9. Once a battle rank goes up, it doesn't go down, and the enemies are tough. A big part of the SaGa games is getting dropped into a massive world with no idea of what to do or where to go. Exploration is the real heart of SaGa Frontier. There are many towns, a plethora of dungeons, and a few legendary items to power up your crew. A cool feature in the remaster is the developer's room. After beating one of Fuse's case files, the dev room is available. It's an interactive version of the credits. There are tons of thank you notes and jokes in here. That includes series composer Kenji Ito. This is a real gem of a soundtrack. Kenji Ito has done compositions for most of the games in the series. I also mentioned him back in Tobal. This game is filled with outstanding music. Also, I have to mention the beautiful artwork by Tomomi Kobayashi. Her elegant style is up there with Final Fantasy artist Yoshitaka Amano. The art gallery is a very welcome addition. Koji Suda's backgrounds look just as good as they always have. I absolutely love this game. A lot of people who worked on this remaster played the original as fans. They really gave us the complete package. I was addicted to this game while working on this video. SaGa Frontier is filled with content. The game clocks in at well over 100 hours. I'm down if there's any interest for a full review, but honestly this section is long enough, so I better move on to the next game.
There was a time in the era of great chaos when the Earth and the Moon were at war with each other. A daredevil from the moon piloted a bizarre aircraft. It was feared, and because of its shape, called Einhander.
Now something completely different, unlike anything Squaresoft had done before. Einhander released in 1997 as a horizontal shoot 'em up. Using what was learned making Final Fantasy VII, Einhander has visuals that blew every other game in the genre away. As you can tell by this point, Square was very experimental. Director Tatsuo Fuji previously worked for Konami. There he worked on shooters like Gradius 2. Perfect guy for the job. The story is set during the second war between the Earth and the Moon. The first war destroyed most of the Earth's surface. The Moon sends down lone fighters to cause as much destruction as they can before they're destroyed. So yeah, you play as a solo pilot. Einhander isn't just a normal shooter. Grabbing enemy weapons with the ship's arm is what makes this game unique. Not every ship drops a weapon, but a lot do. There are a huge variety of weapons like a machine gun, heat-seeking missiles, a shotgun, and many more. The 3 different ships determine how many weapons it can carry. They last as long as the ammo does or a different weapon is picked up. There are tons of unique enemies and bosses to use them on. Boss battles are some of the best parts of the game. Einhander has some crazy bosses. It's not an easy game either. Patterns of enemies and boss attacks are key to Einhander. Stage design combined with the visuals are another highlight. The game can turn a wasteland into something very cool. The first stage throws you into the middle of a city with neon signs and lots of stuff in German. The soundtrack once again is crucial to the game. The game's hard-hitting electronic music perfectly syncs with the action on screen. It's a really good soundtrack. Even though it was an amazing game, it only sold around 100,000 copies in 2 years in Japan. It got a limited print run in North America, and it wasn't even released in Europe. So yeah, a sequel was unlikely. Einhander really is a gem in Square's game catalog. Something so different not only for Square, but for the shooter genre. Definitely a game to check out, but now on to the final game in this video. Here's a game I've wanted to talk about for a while. I first played Xenogears in 1998 when I was 14, and all these years later, it's still a game I think about quite often. Xenogears was created by Tetsuya Takahashi and his wife Kaori Tanaka. The game was originally pitched as Final Fantasy VII, however it was deemed too dark and complicated to be a Final Fantasy. Yes, dark and complicated it is. Eventually, after being a sequel to Chrono Trigger, Xenogears was allowed to be a new Squaresoft IP. Honestly, the story of Xenogears' development is an interesting one. Hironobu Sakaguchi was a big part of the project getting greenlit. It's a story for another time though. Xenogears has heavy psychological and religious themes. For this reason it was believed it wouldn't be localized. Obviously it was, and it was translated by one guy, Richard Honeywood. Honeywood said this translation was quite a challenge due to it containing numerous scientific concepts and philosophies. Xenogears itself is a science fiction RPG set on an unnamed planet. The game opens with I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Then it cuts to a spaceship under attack. The ship crashes and a single woman emerges.
This is an emergency. Level.
Evacuate now.
Evacuate. Evacuate.
There are about 5,276 years of events leading up to the crash that is explained in the Xenogears Perfect Works book. Yes, to get the complete lore, you have to read a book. I've read it a couple times. The game then goes into the very long war between Eva and Kislev. It's been going for 284 years and people can't even remember why it started. The game then shows the main character Faye in a battle against other Gears before it cuts to earlier that day. Faye has no memory of his past. All he knows is a masked man left him in the village 3 years ago. Faye is 18 years old and knows very little of the world outside of his village. This really gives the game a reason to explain a lot. Faye ends up losing control of the gear he just jumped in, and causes the destruction of his village. He ends up leaving and meets a guy that knows more about his past than Faye would even if he had his memories. Xenogears' story is a big one. Dialogue scenes can be extremely long at times. Disc 2 has some that are around 30 minutes. Faye's story takes him all over. He joins pirates, enters a world martial arts tournament, befriends a gunslinging priest. A lot happens in this 60-hour epic. The cast of characters are all filled with their own goals and tragic backstories. That includes the antagonists and NPCs along for the ride. The story is memorable and thought-provoking. The world of Xenogears is an interesting one. Giant cities powered by ancient technology, and other really mysterious locations that you just have to play the game to figure out what they are. Just like most RPGs, Faye runs around a world map entering locations and of course getting into random battles. Xenogears locations are fully 3D with 2D sprites for all characters and NPCs. It's really helpful being able to swing the camera around for sure. Faye himself can run and jump, same when he's in his gear well tall. There is some platforming in Xenogears. Random battles are combo based. There are light, medium, and strong attacks. They're worth 1, 2, and 3 AP. The amount of attacks that can be performed increase with hitting certain levels. While performing different attacks, party members learn death blows. These are very powerful attacks that can be performed at any time. However, if you completely rely on early death blows, you can't learn new ones. These are learned by inputting the proper button combination for the death blow. For example, triangle and X learns Faye's first attack, Raijin. Honestly, I just farm all of these so I can just use the death blows. There is a counter in the menu. If it's 100, then the character isn't high enough level to use it. For a while, it'll just be Faye, Citan, and Bart. Eventually, Ellie will join and fill the black mage role, and Billy fills the role of a gunslinging white mage. And there are more party members who join much later in the game. Gears are also a big part of combat. Gears rely on fuel to perform attacks and special options. With each attack, the attack level goes up. This is how Gears use death blows. These use more fuel, and the attack level resets to 0 once used. There's also a booster to make the ATB meter move faster. That also costs fuel, but useful against bosses. Characters equip weapons, armor, and accessories. Gears need to be upgraded with engines, frames, and armor. There are also parts that add specific bonuses. Battles do give out a decent amount of XP. Bosses are worth the level and then some. The last boss I fought before writing dropped 20,000 experience points. Faye was 13,000 away from level 41. The 3D environments and locations are packed with small details everywhere. Every place you visit feels and looks unique. A lot of care was put into Xenogears. There are a lot of cinematic cutscenes. Whenever id or Graph show up, it's about to get epic. There are CGI and anime cutscenes. The scene on the Eldridge is great, dubbing timed okay, and acting isn't that bad. Then you hit the next one and mouths are moving and nothing is being said.
You talk as if it's not your responsibility.
No, I didn't do anything.
They died because you had to pilot the gear and start fighting.
There aren't too many of these. Most of the cutscenes are in engine. Yasunori Mitsuda composed the soundtrack for Xenogears. He was the main composer for Chrono Trigger, however Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu contributed some tracks. Xenogears was Mitsuda's first solo project. He worked himself to exhaustion and collapsed with the phone receiver in his hand right before the release of the soundtrack. The game opens with the track Dark Dawn. This does an amazing job of capturing the terror of Deus destroying the Eldridge. My personal favorite is the theme of Graph, a bombastic theme that emits power and darkness. Well, I mean, the track is called Graph Ruler of Darkness. There are so many outstanding pieces in Xenogears' soundtrack. It truly elevates this game. Xenogears is a game of mysteries and revelations. Mitsuda truly captured this sound through his passion and dedication to the soundtrack. He would go on to compose Chrono Cross and many others, including Xenogears' spiritual successor, Xenosaga Episode 1. So I mentioned Disc 2 earlier. It's honestly long narration and dialogue. You'll sometimes just go cutscene to boss, to another cutscene to another boss. You rarely actually have control of the characters, and the great pacing and exploration of the first disc is gone until you head off to the final dungeon. You can fly around and see some interesting places, and fight an optional boss. According to Tetsuya Takahashi, this was due to time constraints. Rather than the game abruptly ending on Disc 1, this was a compromise to finish the story. Even though the staff was made with teams from Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana, they'd never worked on a 3D game before. Xenogears was allowed a 2-year development time, and the team had to spend a decent amount of time learning the PlayStation and 3D graphics. So Disc 2 plays like an interactive visual novel. At least we get the complete story. It would suck not to have answers to all the questions. Xenogears needed to sell 1 million copies to get a sequel, a goal missed at 910,000 copies sold. It's become a cult classic over the years. This is my personal favorite game of all time, a game I enjoy even more with every playthrough. Xenogears asks the question, where do we come from? It challenges us to consider what it truly means to live, love, and choose along the way. Alright, those were 9 gems and cult classics from Squaresoft. I actually put in over 100 hours into the games for this video. Honestly, I had different games planned originally for it. Alright guys, Parasite Eve and Front Mission 3 got bumped, but I've got ideas for them in future videos. Do you have any memories of these Squaresoft classics? If you do, leave them down in the comments below. Please like if you liked it, please subscribe, peace.